Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lisa Jarris, and I'm really excited to welcome you to our event this afternoon, Year by Year. The 6 students behind me have worked incredibly hard preparing their stories for you this afternoon. Each one provides a different perspective on what it means to define success for yourself at Williams and really find what you are passionate about. At Williams, it's really easy actually, to get stuck on a track and not follow what you truly care about. It's really easy to take classes you don't care about, not take risks, and not really follow your true passions. No one has all the answers, but sometimes taking that risk, getting off that track, really does make all the difference. We hope these 6 stories inspire you to really think about what your personal success means to you and how you are pursuing your happiness each and every day. These 6 stories really have inspired me. Thank you and enjoy.
You guys hear me okay? Yeah. Good? Yeah. All right, so there are a fair amount more people here than we expected, so naturally we're all a little nervous back here. So it'd really help us out if we tell a joke, just laugh at it. It will make this go a lot smoother. We'd appreciate that. This is my story. Freshman year, I struggled with addiction. And it wasn't the booze, or to nicotine, or to sugar, or to homework. I was destructively obsessed with baseball. I'm going to give you guys a few examples so you can put this in perspective. I had this thing called Forearm Day, and it consisted of 1 to 2 hour workouts once a week, and I would focus exclusively on my forearms in the gym. And I would finish these workouts, I would go to mission lunch, and fueled by the fear of being without a post-workout snack, I would go up the line and I would grab 10 to 20 grilled chicken breasts. And I would take them and I would wrap them in napkins, and then on my way out I would stuff them into my pockets because I wanted a post-workout snack. I never wanted to be without one. And if you take my grilled chicken consumption and you add it up per day, per week, per year, no matter what, you're going to get an alarming amount. And it gets worse. When Obama was elected, I was in the field house taking batting practice. And I vividly remember all of you hooting and hollering when it was announced that he won. But I also vividly remember denouncing the presidential election as an unwelcome distraction to my ability to focus on the ball. My curiosity was limited, and it ranged 324 feet to the left and right field fences and 400 feet to center. If it couldn't take place on the Bobby Coombs baseball field, I just didn't care. And I worked so hard, I overtrained to the point that I broke my back before the first game of my freshman year. And balls started sailing 20 feet over the first baseman's head. I had no control. I was in so much pain. And swinging was so excruciating that I basically stopped doing it when I came to the plate. But unfortunately, baseball still defined me. I had gotten into this school largely due to my abilities as a catcher, and I was not going to let anyone forget that. And later that year, I was courting a young lady who was probably here in this room right now. And she asked me very bluntly what I was interested in. In general, I could have said anything. And what I told her was that, and I quote, "I really just want to start again at catcher next year." And I was very careful to emphasize again, because it was very important to me that she knew that I was the starting catcher at the time. And so I consulted 13 doctors about my back, and I convinced one of them to burn the nerves in my back. It was an experimental procedure that hadn't really been done before, and not surprisingly, it didn't really pan out. And it was becoming increasingly clear that I was not going to be a baseball player at Williams College ever again. And at first I blamed Williams. I got off campus on weekends. I wanted nothing to do with this place. And during the week, I wasn't talking to you guys. I was talking to my friends from home because they could and would remind me that I was a baseball stud. But I couldn't lift weights and I wasn't in the gym, so I inevitably found myself with more time on campus. And I reluctantly began hanging out with you guys. And you guys couldn't ask me about the team because I wasn't on it anymore. And I couldn't give you my latest weight room philosophies because I wasn't in the weight room. So conversations inevitably took new directions. And I'm not really sure when it happened. There was no magic moment that I can point to. But after about a year of rehab, it was okay with me that I would never be playing baseball again. And it was peaceful. It felt good. There was a lot less stress. And it was through conversations with you guys that I realized that I'd been in a mind frame where a game in which I had 2 hits would just send me into ecstasy. I was on cloud 9 every time. And if I had 1 hit, I would be stable. But if I had an offer, which is a no-hit game, if I had an offer, I would go down low every single time. Some of you may remember. But I remember being glad that my Williams room had a passcode on it so that you guys couldn't get in to disrupt my pouting on those nights. And it would have been okay. It's okay to get upset after games, but it's not okay if it's the only thing that contributes to your happiness. And my parents had very cleverly pointed out for years that my happiness and my batting average were directly correlated. And my freshman year batting average was 191. And I'm not sure what you guys know about baseball, but that is very bad. Really, really bad. And I was very sad. But I am happy now. And I'm happy pretty much all the time. And I think that's why I was asked to give this speech. Because freshman year I was one way, and I was sad consistently. And now I'm a lot of other ways, and now I'm happy consistently. And when I was asked to take my experience and sum it up in 5 minutes, the word diversity came up naturally. It was not a gimmick that I felt like I had to work into my Claiming Williams Day speech, because the diversity of all of you is what led to my transformation. Eddie Nadell, over there in the Giants hat, he talked me into exploring South America. And I spent my junior fall in Argentina, where there's hardly a translation for the word baseball. Aliki Kumahia, directly behind him, passed on his passion for music, and my late night batting cage sessions have been replaced with our late night radio show, which is at midnight on Wednesdays. We are hurting for listeners, so please listen in. And finally, Nick Fogel, who you all know, forced me outdoors. He didn't really give me a choice. And my 50 games of summer baseball have been replaced with us last summer camping in Costa Rica, where there are no baseball fields and absolutely no weight rooms. Their passions have been there the whole time. I've known Aliki Kumahia for 9 years. We went to high school together, and he's been obsessed with music this entire time. But I just really didn't care enough to even pretend that I was interested in what he was interested in. It just didn't come up in our conversations because I genuinely did not care. I came to Williams very closed-minded, but it was you guys who opened my mind and just let more things in, and I thank you for that. This diversity of interests has led me to a profession that probably, with reason, would have elicited a few laughs 4 years ago during first days. When I start teaching next year, it will be my job to open minds. I will be doing it professionally. And if I'm any good at it, which I really hope that I am, my students will be as lucky as I am, and they'll be able to talk about their days of classroom disinterest in the past tense. And I'm really excited for that. I'm really hoping I can do that for them. And when I came home junior year to all my friends from high school, the general consensus among them was that Chase got weird. Everyone agreed. And I'm not encouraging you guys to give up your focus and completely change everything about you. That's not what I'm telling you to do. But if the things that make you very, very happy are considered weird, then no matter how strange they are, then I encourage you to get weird, or have a very good reason for not doing so. Happiness was completely redefined for me at Williams, and I would wish this college experience upon anyone. Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lauren Shelton. I'm class of 2012, so I'm almost done here, but I remember very specifically my freshman year when I first got here that I had two basic reactions of Williams during those first days, and those sort of defined my ideas of what it would mean to be successful here. The first was that I in no way belonged here. I was a recruit for cross country, so the coaches were the real reason that I got in. Honestly, it didn't really worry me that much until I got to first days and I started meeting all of the geniuses and piano prodigies and NGO founders, and all of a sudden I was a little bit more intimidated. To be successful at Williams, I would pretty much just need to get by. The second main reaction that I had was that the men of Williams are infinitely more dateable than the men back home in New Hampshire. To be successful, I would need a boyfriend. I'm pleased to report that in the second category, I was pretty successful, and I found a man from the stock of gentlemen in my entry, and we started dating. Aside from that, I basically translated my high school experience into this brand new scene. I figured if I was good at it then maybe I could at least pass at it here. So I took my political activism from high school and I channeled that into a poli-sci major. I took my place on the cross-country roster like I always had, and I filled up the rest of my free time with first serious boyfriend. Fast forward to February of that year, and it was clear that something had been lost in translation. Despite sticking with all these things I knew, I wasn't really doing that well at any of them. I had run abominably my first season, and for the first time since I was 6 years old, I wasn't even interested in training anymore, competing. And my classes weren't really getting me excited. I was falling asleep in a lot of them, getting mediocre grades because of it. And as it turns out, I didn't really enjoy having a serious boyfriend. It's a lot of effort for a freshman girl who's trying to figure her shit out. I started figuring out all of this stuff when I took an English class with professors Peter Murphy and Christian Thorne, the dream team. And I realized that I felt caffeinated in that class. I was filling up notebook after notebook of things that my professors were saying, things that I felt about the works that we were talking about. It was totally opening my mind. Of course, I had always been interested in literature. I'd never stopped reading as a kid. And I probably guess I should have learned this from one of the thousands and thousands of episodes of Wishbone that I watched. But you have to do what makes you happy first. And so if all of these things that I thought were going to make me happy didn't, what was going to come next? If this was a romantic comedy or an episode of Wishbone, as the case may be, this would be the montage of life-changing tactics. I dropped the poli-sci major, I broke up with my boyfriend, I requested dual citizenship in a new entry so that I could make friends, I quit running, and I cut off all of my hair. And it's funny because that's the part that I remember the most, the hair, even though it wasn't really that dramatic of a cut. But there was something about it, the weightlessness. I remember I wrote in my journal the day after I had it done that without all of these tangles to deal with every morning, that I might actually just float away. And that's a really good feeling. For like 10 seconds. It was clear that I was going to need something else to ground me going forward. So I did the radical thing. I started reading the daily messages. Every single email, every single message. And I said yes to literally everything that I could. I showed up at some really weird things, and I went to meetings full of total strangers. And what I learned from all of these new adventures was pretty weird. It turns out that at an elite institution like Williams, a place that had so intimidated me, if you show up with like a little bit of enthusiasm, you're pretty much golden. I started going up to this activist group that was active at the time, and I volunteered to take notes for them because I figured, I couldn't screw up that too badly. And it turns out that if you're taking the notes, then you're writing the emails, and if you're writing the emails, then you sort of end up kind of being one of the leaders in the group. And that made me feel successful in a way that I hadn't yet at Williams. And it wasn't the ego boost of having a new line to put on your resume, like it sometimes felt in high school when I was trying to get into this place. It was something different. I was making meaningful relationships with these game changers in North Adams and Williamstown, and we were accomplishing these incredible things. It made me feel really good that regardless of my GPA or my 5K PR, that people were counting on me and depending on me so that they could do really cool things. I think I always knew that this happiness thing and this success thing were pretty much supposed to be the same thing. I just went a little bit crazy freshman year and I forgot. But since February of '09, I realized that for me, the happiness and the successful thing is closely related to my wholehearted engagement with this place. Getting by never should have been on my radar at all. These days, I'm working with a nonprofit called Higher Ground that's working in the aftermath of Hurricane Irene to find more affordable housing in Williamstown. And it's funny, I haven't been on it that long, just since the start of the year, yet already every time I'm walking outside my dorm or shopping at Stop and Shop or swinging by Tunnel City, I'm running into my other fellow board members. And they always take time out to chat with me and tell me about their lives, catch me up on town gossip. There's a lot of town gossip. And all of a sudden, I had these meaningful connections everywhere. I mean, the other day, it's not even just off campus. I walked outside of my dorm room the other day, and I ran into my janitor, and he had seen me walking around the Spruces a couple days before. Turns out that he had been moving a family out of that community. So suddenly we had this whole new connection that we didn't have before. And later, when I was trying to set up a fundraiser, he saw that my name was attached to it and basically did all of the hard work for me. So these connections also make my life a lot easier. I'm starting to do the serious dating thing again too. And I think it's going a lot better now that I've balanced him a little bit better with the rest of my life. And as I'm sure you can imagine, that's a pretty rad, meaningful connection to have too. And looking back, I'm realizing that I don't think I ever really was that interested in politics. I mean, I couldn't even vote back then when I was going to all those protests. I think I just really liked feeling like I was a part of the system. I mean, at least I was showing up, at least I cared, at least these people cared. And I think that, showing up, caring, making connections with other people, that's my definition of success now as I'm about to graduate from Williams. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Heidi. I'm a frosh from D4, and this is a letter to Maddie, an 8th grader at Mount Greylock High School Middle School, who I recently started tutoring during winter study. Dear Maddie, the other day you asked me why you have to learn Spanish, or for that matter, any of the classes you are taking, when you won't need them in the future. Suddenly, I was faced with more than the challenge of explaining how to learn a language that I could barely remember. 4 years of cramming vocabulary and idioms the night before a test hadn't worked for me. I could barely roll my R's, let alone defend the virtues of the language. I tried to explain to you that yes, being in middle school is mostly about getting through a lot of busy work. And no, I couldn't see past the sleepless nights and stress of high school until after I realized how lucky I was to grow up with my friends and to have my teachers as mentors. You gave me a blank stare because honestly, how is an 8th grader supposed to understand any of this? Plus, I'm pretty sure you were only trying to avoid having to memorize the difference between nada and nadar. So I'm writing this for the day when you will finally be able to relate to all the things I wanted to say. Even then, I cannot tell you that it gets better in college, because I still struggle to justify taking the classes I chose for the next semester. Will I actually enjoy taking Diff EQ, or will it simply compound the stress of taking Orgo and a tutorial? Do I really want to devote 3 of my 32 classes here at Williams to the math department if I don't plan on majoring? Because I still wonder whether any of the ones I've taken will count towards my major. Not to mention whether my major will relate to my career at all. All of this freaks me out. Don't get me wrong. I do know none of this actually matters in the long run. I will not remember half the things I learned anyway because you are right. I will not need them. I already know that it all works out in the end because most of the people in my life have changed professions at one time or another. So I shouldn't expect to be stuck on one track, whichever one I decide upon. I know all of this, but right now, in this moment, I'm terrified because having faith in the future doesn't lessen the fear of uncertainty. Knowing that what I get out of a class is something only I can determine doesn't lessen the sting of the grade that I get at the end of the semester. And if you knew the grades I'd gotten my first semester, or about my lack of time management skills, you wouldn't ask me for advice, much less for help on concentrating in school. You see, I was pretty distracted from my academics my first semester, and if I tried to boil down all the time I spent procrastinating, I basically hung out with my friends a lot. There's Krista, who juggles her obligations as a JA, a daughter, and a member of countless college council committees. Ben, who manages to finish his work, call home daily, and sleep before midnight. Olivia, who chats on the phone for hours on end with her friends from Seattle, while successfully wrenching out of the entry and forming new friendships with the people in her chem class, Where Am I group, and the Ristic House. This list of wonderful people goes on to encompass my entire entry, for they are the people I look to when I think of living life deliberately. But I have learned as much from them as I have about them. For example, before I started college, I did not know how much of what I had to say could be ridiculed. But if you take a look at my entry's quote board, you would see that the answer is all of it. You would also discover that I suffer from an inability to perceive sarcasm and to recognize that Malawi is in fact a city in Wisconsin, not Hawaii. Crap, I meant Milwaukee, I really did. This too is part of what I have to look forward to next semester, along with all the stress of the academics. I will be learning to laugh at myself, as much as I will be learning to focus on my schoolwork. But I will stop counting the nights I pass out on top of my reading, because there are just as many where I stay up till 4 in the morning, arguing with Ben about the right to marriage, healthcare, and abortion. Dear Maddie, I don't really know why you have to learn Spanish. That is something that you will have to decide for yourself. I admit that is not a very satisfying answer, but I hope you can at least take comfort in knowing that you are not alone in all your frustration of trying to take responsibility of your own education. Love, Heidi.
How's it going, guys? My name's Joey Samuels. I'm a senior, class 2012. And my mom always jokes around that I was born at the age of 40. So, ignoring the fact that that would make me 61 today, I'm not sure she's too far off. You see, at 40, we have the expectation, or at the very least the hope, that our life will have some sort of purpose and meaning. And I'm fairly comfortable standing here before you guys today saying that I think in the broadest sense I've attained that. See, I've found, I hope, what makes me truly happy. Of course, my interests might change, but ultimately these are the things that I love. So for me, Williams hasn't been defined in the classic liberal arts mode. I haven't taken a multitude of classes in 20 different subjects. Instead, I fulfilled my requirements, but with a heavy emphasis in my passion, political science. And I've known that I wanted to study political science, government, history, since I was in the 3rd grade. So picture me, unfortunately, not much shorter, and dressed as our equally diminutive 4th president, James Madison, for a school play. That's when it clicked. When reading the Constitution as a 3rd grader, when learning about government, learning how it was created to make society better, made me light up. And of course, I've dabbled in other things since. I had a brief affair with chemistry in the 10th grade, and a freshman year math class nearly stole my heart. Except that that math class was called the Mathematics of Politics, and only further reinforced just how much I knew what I really loved. I mean, nothing interests me quite like poli-sci. I can go on for minutes about a cool psych fact, but I can go on for hours. Just ask any of my friends about whether the Second Amendment really guarantees us a right to keep guns in our homes. Williams has helped me grow in a very personal way, though. For years, I thought that I wanted to be a Supreme Court justice. I had it all figured out. And I'll freely admit on top of that I'm a huge government dork. One of my most prized possessions is right here. It's a leather-bound, gold-leafed pocket Constitution. I got it. It was a graduation present. And given my obsession with this beautiful, wonderful document, and all of the pressure that I put on myself, that my parents put on me, that my friends put on me to shoot for the top, I thought that the only way that I could be truly happy was through the relentless pursuit of this nearly unobtainable goal. But instead, in the process of cramming Supreme Court opinions into my brain, of finding that perfect internship, and getting my picture taken with an orange, smiling Senator Dick Lugar, after coming in an agonizing 2nd place in a national constitutional quiz competition, I did something better. I found a girl. Now, I know you're wondering. Just wait. I know you're wondering what that has to do with Williams, and in some ways it doesn't. I was doing a lot of those things to get into Williams, which I'd fallen in love with as soon as I stepped foot on campus, but I had it all planned out. After Williams, I was going on to a great law school. Then I was going to work in the Department of Justice. I was going to work my way up that chain. I was going to be appointed solicitor or attorney general. And then I was going to be nominated for the Supreme Court. But since sophomore year of high school, I had also been madly, stupidly in love with this girl. Now, Williams didn't let her in. She's at a shabby institution a couple hours up the road named Dartmouth. But in having to juggle my Williams course load, create that whole new group of friends, involve myself in extracurricular activities, I also maintained my relationship with that girl. And what I've realized over my time here, over my last 4 years, is that I really wasn't nearly as concerned with my career as my happiness. I took and I take a lot of poli-sci classes because they make me happy. I don't take biology because it makes me unhappy. Terribly, horribly unhappy. But in my 4 years at Williams, much because of the people I've met, but also that relationship I maintained, I transitioned my measure of success from grades and job prospects to happiness. And I also willingly juggled that busy Williams schedule, skipped out on a mountain day here or there, missed a winter carnival, and to Yanni, Sam, and all of Seiji, I'm really sorry, but I skipped to snacks. because ultimately I was happier being with that girl. And let's be serious about it. My Williams experience is absolutely atypical. For example, on a cold, windy day this past December, I took that girl to Washington, D.C. We walked up to the top of the United States Capitol. I got down on one knee, pulled out a ring, and asked her to marry me. And she said no. And I don't care that I'm 21, and I'm not concerned that I'm still in college, because in this one area of my life, I've been truly successful. Because I haven't mentioned it up to this point, but she's a government dork too. She knows all those amendments better than I do. She's kicked my ass across many a government class. And we've spent literal days on the couch watching TV, watching West Wing, the world's greatest television show, debating which one of us would have made a better White House press secretary. The answer is, it's her. But also, more importantly, the point is that I got lucky. I found what I loved at an early age, and when I redefined my ideas of success, I was able to reap the benefits of that. And so while that girl certainly makes my Williams experience unique, I'd like to think that Williams has been for me what we all want it to be, a place to pursue our passions and goals. So that means that I haven't just studied political science, but I've really immersed myself in it. I've made some great relationships with professors who've helped me do unique things, like help them with research, work on their books, find me internships in Washington, D.C. that expanded my initially very narrow definition of what I wanted to do with my life. And I've also found a group of friends who are belligerent, combative, and always in for a good debate. And they're all sitting right there. David Marsh, Andrew Lorenzen, Luke Robinson, the rectory. They'll yell at you later. The point is that while this might sound scary to some people, for me, it's what I loved. It only further reinforced what I love to study, what sort of interactions I like to have, and what made me truly happy. So ultimately, my time here hasn't been about finding something new that I love, but instead aligning my definitions of success with a real understanding of what really makes me happy. So 4 years ago, how would I have said I was successful? Well, I would have been the best student in the political science department, and I would have worked that perfect internship in the Department of Justice. And today, I think I'm pretty successful. And I'm not the best student in the political science department. I haven't worked that internship in the GOJ, and I don't think I will anytime in the next decade. So what changed? Well, it was an understanding that a ring on someone else's hand meant a lot more to me than a gavel in my own. That I had to wake up every morning, that I had to do what I wanted to do, what would make me happy, and I didn't need to conform to the demands or suggestions of my parents or my professors or my community. And the best part of all of this is that sometime late in this summer, I'm moving out to California with my fiance, so she can continue to shine and really nerd out at Stanford Law School. And I, Joey Samuels, the 61-year-old man, with all the plans and focus, have no idea what I will or what I want to do for the next few years. And I couldn't be happier. Thanks.
Oh, okay, there we go. Thanks for coming, everyone. My name is Lucy Rollins, and I'm a senior as well, class of 2012. As a senior, trying to remember what my perspective was freshman year, I see my freshman self and my senior self as two very different people. As a freshman, I don't really remember actively considering my idea of personal success. I sort of just did what I was good at and thought was important, without really evaluating how my actions aligned with my values and how I wanted them to. Soon after I got here, I knew I wanted to be a JA, get into an a cappella group, pursue bio and psych, be an activist, and be captain of the field hockey team my senior year, breathing purple air hardcore for 4 years, which I was super pumped about. doing what I loved, being a leader and a mentor, and trying to create positive change were all things that I thought were going to make me happy. And they did, but in an unexpected way. After struggling to get back in shape following the surgical removal of a mysteriously placed extra bone in my left big toe, sophomore preseason was absolutely brutal. I called my mom every other night crying on the phone. I guess you knew I was on the phone if I was calling my mom. I didn't have to say the phone part. I called my mom every other night crying and walking or limping around my dorm with a welt on my leg, about 3 times the size of the sticker, which unfortunately in the field hockey world is not uncommon. And my mom, hearing me cry, told me that if quitting made me happy, then that's obviously what I should do. But I didn't really know what was going to make me happy because I loved the team. I loved the competition. It was a super awesome ego boost getting to start in games. And I was utterly obsessed with that irreplaceable rush I got on the field and couldn't really find anywhere else. But at the same time, this massive time commitment on my hands that absorbed all of my energy suppressed my ability to engage fully in my classes and go after the activist-y things that I wanted to do. And it also suppressed my mental and physical health, which is obviously supposed to be high on my priority list. So after a lot of back and forth, I decided to quit after my sophomore season. And it was actually really scary because being a good athlete is ultimately why I thought at the time I got into this school. It was also difficult giving up my title as a badass recruit, but I eventually got over that and decided that I was actually an undercover broomball recruit. So that makes me feel a little bit better. No, but seriously, it was a big struggle giving this part of my life up, but this struggle has become a piece of my success here. Facing the challenge of quitting field hockey opened me up to explore other challenges and pursue what I really wanted to do. I got into an a cappella group. I became that JA that I really wanted to be, Sage D. And I had more mental space to sort of decompartmentalize my life. And I also had time to start Amnesty International with my good friend Emily, and more time to commit to Log Lunch, all things that really made my life a lot more colorful. So with my fresh perspective, I wanted to capitalize on my newly opened summers. And this was really exciting because I like to think of my summers as a chance to do something I really care about. So after my freshman year, that summer, I was sort of tied down to Westchester, New York, because I had to help out with some field hockey camps in Greenwich and get that bone taken out of my foot. I don't know how it got there. Anyway, but at the time, that summer was in line with my values. I cared about the team. Continuing to play on the team meant getting surgery. And teaching kids how to play field hockey, which I was really passionate about, was awesome. But after sophomore year, my summers opened up, and the world was at my fingertips. So I hopped on a plane to Greece, camped out in an olive orchard for 3 weeks, and protected sea turtle nests on the beach. Obviously. The reason I wanted to do this is because I wanted to work on a project that I really cared about and do like really physically hard work. It turns out there were way too many people to do the work and a ton of downtime. Luckily, enough hammocks to chill out in. But regardless, this experience exposed me to some bizarre challenges that taught me a lot about myself and also how the Sea Turtle Protection Society of Greece functions and sometimes malfunctions. I also learned a lot about loggerhead sea turtles, an ancient, noble, and grossly underappreciated species. I'm also aware that I was really fortunate that I had parents who were willing and able to pay for my trip that summer. But since I wanted to do more exploring, the next summer, which was this past summer, I looked to Williams for an alumni sponsor and internship, and I got to work with emotionally disturbed teenage boys on an organic vegetable farm in Westchester. And the reason I wanted to do that is because I wanted to more fully understand how working responsibly with the environment not only is beneficial to the land and to the food that we produced, but also created really cool opportunities for learning and healing for the kids and for us, and it was so amazing. So looking back at my summers in this sort of sequential order has made me realize more how I've shifted sort of in how I act on my values. So after sophomore year, when I had more time on my hands, I was able to act on my values in a more profound and exploratory and more exciting way, ultimately. The dissonance that resulted between being an athlete here and wanting to live out my values the way that I wanted really taught me the true value of struggle and caused me to seek it out more. For instance, the struggle that I experienced in art classes here, the way that they challenged me to interact and produce every week something creative and made me think in different ways, caused me to change my major from science to studio art. It's not that my values have drastically changed since freshman year, but rather the way that I act on them has shifted. So, for example, instead of going to Amnesty to be an activist, going to class because I value education, and going to practice because I value physical struggle and competition, I now know that I can experience all of those things in other ways too. So I value activism not only by standing outside the White House, but also buying local food for log lunch. And I value education and the conversations I have at dinner and the movies I see and the classes I take. And I value physical struggle by attempting to run up pine cobble once in a while, which is really difficult, or weeding a garden. And I value competition by captaining my kick-ass broomball team all the way to the championship game. We lost, but it was awesome. Good job, guys. So this transition that I've gone through has opened me up to experience new people and places that really challenge the way that I think and my values and how I want to act in the world and how I want my actions to resonate at Williams and in the world. So while I've definitely gained a greater consciousness about all of these things since coming here, I still have a very long way to go in terms of developing my values and understanding who I want to be in the world. What I do know is that my health, the health of the land, and the health of the people around me are what I want to live for. And that I didn't have to focus on science in college to effectively pursue these things for the rest of my life. And while I couldn't be more excited about being a sustainable farmer and learning more about the food system and community engagement and health education, my outlook also comes with a ton of insecurity, a lot of uncertainty, and a good helping of struggle. But that struggle is my success now, not scoring goals, except in broomball.
All right, guys. The story of how I claimed Williams, or how I'm claiming Williams, doesn't begin in a blaze of freshman glory parlayed into 4 years of seizing life-changing opportunities. Quite the contrary, in fact. My story's beginning is ripe with moments unseized. It's defined not by challenging exploration, but instead by a case of tunnel vision so severe, so hell-bent on claiming Williams for myself, that I not only failed to see the chances I was missing as they flew by, but also that I was even missing chances at all. I came to Williams in the fall of 2008, very ready for college, or so I thought. I was tired of the high school thing, as I imagine some of you were too, and I couldn't wait for a change. Couldn't wait to move on to greener pastures, or purpler valleys, as the case may be. But when I arrived on campus, I quickly realized I'd fallen into what I think is a classic Williams incoming freshman trap. All I'd heard when I told people I was coming here, assuming we're only talking about that tiny subset of people who actually know something, anything about Williams, was how jealous they were, how amazing this place is, and how earth-shattering my next 4 years would be. So naturally, by the time I got here, I thought everything was going to be perfect. But I soon realized that things here aren't perfect. I still had to worry about a lot of the same old stuff. Making new friends, playing tennis under pressure, getting good grades, measuring up to my classmates to whom everything seemed to come so easily. Suddenly, I miss my home, I miss my siblings and my mom, and I miss knowing my surroundings and having my surroundings know me. And then, as a result of all this missing, a funny thing happened. I started missing things here too. I sank into a pattern of schoolwork, and more schoolwork, trying to squeeze out that perfection I expected. I didn't hang out with my entry. I rarely chilled with my teammates. I didn't go out. I didn't really even ever have fun. I took classes I didn't necessarily want to take because I felt like I should take them. And worried I was going to make a mistake, I didn't speak much in those classes. I stopped caring about my tennis game. I ate a lot of grab and go in the library. I worked on Mountain Day. I missed Winter Carnival. And unlike Joey, I didn't do so for the right reason. I even skipped claiming Williams Day. I was trying too hard, doing too much, which ironically resulted in me not doing enough. So I became, as time wore on, even less efficient and even more stressed. And the endeavors about which I had always been passionate, they started to suffer too. I was putting in twice the effort, getting half the sleep, and feeling worse and worse. Forgetting much of what I had spent my high school experience learning about the art of crafting a happy, healthy existence, I tightened my grip and burrowed deeper, believing that to stake my claim, I just needed to work harder, longer, more tenaciously, without ever stopping to consider what was happening in the process. Too bad Heidi didn't write me a letter. So what did happen after 2 years of this? After 2 years of trying too aggressively to claim Williams? To be honest, I don't really know. Like Chase, I can't pinpoint a particular magic moment, but something changed. I began to listen to those around me, gradually starting to let my guard down, loosen my hold, open up. In other words, I started to let Williams claim me. I relaxed. I sprinkled in some downtime, some fun, some college. I even went to my first Fridays. I stopped driving and decided to go along for the ride sometimes. So, the Williams experience I know today got off to a little bit of a late start. But in a weird way, I'm happy about that. Despite my initial struggles, or as Lucy might say, because of those struggles, I believe my appreciation for this place runs deeper than it otherwise would have. And also, this difficult beginning has given me new perspective on the rapidly approaching ending. My time here is almost up, but as far as my claiming of Williams goes, and its claiming of me, there's no end in sight. And I don't think that's a bad thing at all. So armed with this important realization that I will never be able to talk about these things in the past tense, because they're always ongoing, always shifting, always informing, guiding, enriching, improving, and challenging me, even after I leave campus in a few months. It doesn't make sense for me to try to boil down my time here into some neat, tidy little productive package that you can slip into your pocket before walking away today. I will say this, though. Find your wheelhouse at Williams, but don't look too hard. You also have to let it find you. My happiness, kind of like Lauren's, is strongly correlated with my level of investment in what's going on around me. And I'd venture that the same is true for a lot of you as well. Now, this is an obvious version of that cliched to death claim that the more you put in, the more you get out. Except that I've found that that phrase doesn't really mean that much without an important set of qualifications. It's true. The more I do, the happier I am, provided that what I do is spread across a number of areas and a number of people, and, importantly, that some of those areas and some of those people just sort of pleasantly popped into my life. So where exactly is my Williams wheelhouse? Well, it's somewhere between nicely balanced and crazily overextended. A happy mixture of careful planning and pleasant popping. And that's right where I like it. It's in Scal by the tables in the back with the other regulars. It's in Morgan with Dickin and the fourth floor crew. It's in Professor Fix's office in Hollander Hall and Coach Greenberg's office above Eveporium. And it's with Dylan in Snack Bar, that beautiful and terrible place where discipline goes to die. It's on the outside tennis courts in the fall and spring with Kurt Tong and the women's tennis team as we volley shouts of encouragement back and forth. And it's at the field house during the winter with Trey and the walkers and the rock climbers and the maintenance guys and the other teams and groups that call its cozy confines home. It's in Griffin 5 for meetings with Sydney and the SAC gang. It's in Tunnel City many weekday mornings, along with what seems like the rest of Williamstown. And it's in the writing workshop with my fellow tutors and a new group of writers each time who, funnily enough, often seem to teach me more than I teach them. It's behind the mic at EAF basketball games with Kevin. It's in the 2 Brooks common rooms with Adam and the rest of my boys, and eventually some security guards too. And yes, it's right here in Goodrich as well, for this afternoon's event with all of you, but also for tomorrow night's First Fridays. And therefore, the best way to sum up my Williams experience might be like this. It's balanced by imbalance, which just means that I'm all over the place, doing lots of different things with lots of interesting people. Even so, there are many places and many people that I didn't get to include in the list I just rattled off. But I still have a semester left and a lifetime after that. So what now? Who knows? I'm not really sure. But what I do know is that even though I still crave order sometimes, I've also learned to relish the mess. Yes, I was initially desperate for the perfection that I anticipated before I got here. And yes, I tried really hard for a while to find it. But now I understand that the fact that my experience hasn't played out perfectly is exactly why it has been and will continue to be so valuable. And most importantly, I know that although I don't actually know that much, I'm equipped with the tools to move forward. So I'll keep chugging, thinking, testing, trying, learning, looking and not looking, balancing and imbalancing, claiming and being claimed. And I'll always remember that my connection with Williams runs 2 ways. From me to it, but also from you to me. Thank you.
Get weird.
I did the radical thing. I started reading daily messages.
Dear Will,
I realized that a ring on someone else's hand meant a lot more to me than a gavel in my own.
It was a struggle to give that huge part of my life up, but that struggle is now my success.
Find your Williams wheelhouse, but don't look too hard. You also have to let it find you.